All right, so in this video, we're going to be taking a look at just a really simple basic project that we want to convert into embroidery. Now, this image was posted to our Facebook group. It's called Learning InkScape and InkStitch. And if you have a project you're working on and you want some one-on-one help with, just post it to the group. Say, hey, this is the design I'm working on. I need it this size, and I don't know where to begin, or can you give me some pointers, what have you. That's how we all learn, by making these video tutorials and for different jobs, different designs, to kind of show you how I would tackle it. And hopefully, if you have some experience, you'll share that experience as well and maybe make comments on what you're seeing here. So let's go ahead and import the graphic in question. Reminds me of Charlie the Tuna. So we'll go ahead and import this. So this is just a screenshot that was posted on the group, and this particular individual just wasn't sure where to go. And you could see that there, here on the screenshot, there is a troubleshoot. And it actually, that's one good thing. Like InkStitch will kind of tell you if there's a problem, it'll kind of tell you what the problem is. And if we look at it, it says that this object won't work because it's an image, and then it gives you some ideas of what you could do. And you can see it says convert your image into a path trace bitmap. Further steps may be required. It should say further steps will absolutely be required. Alternatively, redraw the image with the pen or Bezier tool. Okay, so it tells us exactly what we need to do in this particular case. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to redraw this little guy. Okay, so if we had the JPEG image of this that was a little bit better quality, we could possibly trace it. Certainly we could possibly do that. But even if we had the vector version of this, there may be, and would be, not may, but would be, considerable amount of work needed to be able to embroider this. So it's just a matter of going through step by step how to go about doing it. Now, in the listing description below, I will post a link to another video that kind of walks you through the same process we're going to take a look at here, but we're going to do it with a different image. And so the more projects you watch, the more it'll start to click that, okay, it really is the same thing over and over and over and over again. So with that said, let's just go draw a little box around what we got, and we're going to create what we call a clipping group, because I want to just focus on my image here. So I drew a little box, and then I select my image by holding my shift key down, and I come up here to object. We're going to clip, and we're going to set our clip, and you can see it clips away everything but our image here. Now I am going to go ahead and create a new layer. And so on layer 1, this is our original image layer. We're going to go ahead and lock that. And I think we're going to go ahead and lower the opacity. So we're going to go ahead and click on that little square there and lower our opacity. All right, so let's just kind of come in here and just take a look at our first piece. Let's just say we want to create this tail piece right here. What I'll do is go into my pen tool here, which is our Bezier tool. And we're going to click here, and we're going to click here. Now we are on layer 1, so we can't do anything on layer 1 because it's locked. So we do need to move to layer 2. And we'll come back to where we started from, right? And then we'll switch to our node tool. So we'll hit the N key on our keyboard. Now if you want to know where your node tool is, it's right there. Okay. Now we could double click, add a node. Okay, and then you do have these control handles where you could control exactly how you want this curve to be. Okay, now right now when we use those control handles, notice if I change one, it also changes the other. So we can't have that. So we just hit Control key, and now it'll do the same way. But if we click here and click on this right here, this is a corner node. So now we can kind of control each side independently. You see here? So pretty straightforward stuff, but it is stuff that you do have to learn exactly how it all works. Okay, and we're just clicking and dragging until visually we get what we want. Okay, so that's our first step. Now it is a good idea to name. So for example, as we go, so this is we'll call it tail fin. I like to name my stuff. Don't necessarily have to do that, but when we're later on when we're trying to figure everything out, that can be kind of helpful. So there's our tail fin, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create the main shape of the little fish here. So back to my pen tool, and I'm just going to click and click and click, and let's go right here and here and here and here and here. Now you can see what I did there. I just kind of just randomly selected spots. You'll get a feel for how this works when you actually start kind of playing around a little bit. But now I can click and drag these things. Remember, we do have control handles we can use. So if we click on there, we'll zoom in here. We can click and drag right here. Sometimes our nodes aren't exactly spaced right where we need them, but you see how we can really, with just a couple of nodes, we can get pretty darn accurate results, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. Then we'll go ahead and do that. Then we'll go ahead and do that. Now sometimes it is a little bit hard to see our nodes, or our control handles rather, but there we go. Okay, so I'm pretty happy. So you can see how we've kind of followed the shape. Now for the mouth here, let's maybe, we'll just give that just a little bit of a bend there. Okay, now let's turn off that image. I just want to see if I can't illustrate a point here. So you see how we're coming along here? Now if you look at this path, everything looks good, but there's a little bobble there. You see how it's got a little bitty point right there and a little bitty point right there? Well, what I do to fix those is I just come up here, click on our path. We'll click on one side of that node, double click. That adds a node. This adds a node, and then we delete where the little bobble is. Same thing over here. We select, delete, and there you go. Now you can kind of see what we got going on here. Now, this fin is sitting, these two are interacting with one another. So I'm going to take my big fish here and duplicate it. So Control D, and then we're going to select our fin because I need to cut that little chunk out right there. So that's where we come in here to path and choose difference. And you can see now our little path is cut. All right, so let's go back in, go back to display mode normal, and we'll take a look at this. We'll turn on our image. So what's up next? Well, for the next thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and not give a stroke. So Shift on the red X. Then we will give it a stroke, or a fill rather. Okay. And then the same thing up here. We're going to do the exact same thing. But this fill, we're going to just do white because I just want to illustrate the point. But no stroke. Okay. So now we could select both of those and convert them into embroidery. So we'll go to InkStitch, Params. Params is where we define our embroidery. Now I selected both of them, went into params together with both of them. So whatever params I wind up assigning, those are the params that are going to be that are going to be used. And so we may want that, and we may not want that. Okay. So you can see here we do now have embroidery stitches though, and you can see that looks perfect, right? So one thing we may want to do on our stitch angle, I like to change my stitch angle. By default, they're horizontal. Okay, and then you can see here it says the maximum fill stitch length is 3 millimeters, and then the spacing between rows is 0.25. Okay, you may like that. You may not like that. So I am gonna change that to 0.4. And that's a param that you can play around with and see what you personally like or dislike. Okay, So we'll go ahead and choose apply and quit. And notice that the 25 degrees, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do negative 25. I want those to come at me. So we could do negative 25 degrees, and then they should come this way then. Yes. So you see how they're like at that angle now, and that I think I like that better. So we'll choose apply and quit. Okay. So now we have those embroidery stitches. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come in here, and I'm going to come down to InkStitch, and I just want to look at the stitch file preview. And we're going to let's just go ahead and hit apply. Now the stitch file preview does take a little bit. Okay, so this will actually take us a little bit. Depending on the speed of your machine. That's one thing in this new update, seems to take a lot longer than I would like it to. But we can go ahead and hit close now. And now we can take a look at that stitch preview. And you can see what our embroidery looks like, kind of in a simulated mode. Okay, so things are looking good. So now this is why it's sometimes helpful, we call it main tuna body, whatever you want, right? So this is why it's sometimes helpful to have everything named and on different layers. So like, for example, we'll just turn off the visibility of our tail fin because we've already done that. We really don't need our main tuna body at the moment. But what I do want to do is I want to create this blue of the tuna. See this blue of the tuna? I want to create that blue of the tuna. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to come up here, and I'm going to click and click, and you see where the kind of the curves are happening? That's where I want to click. Okay, in between the curves. Again, this is just something you got to get a feel for, but just you can see what I'm doing. I'm just clicking, 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 and come way down here and click and accept that. Now this is got a fill, which we do not want no fill. So left click on the fill, the red square. We do need a stroke because we need to see what we're doing. Shift click on red, and then we would just come up here, grab the node tool, remember N on our keyboard, and we can just manipulate. Don't have to worry about the eye here because we're going to cover that up, so that part's fine. And you know, the other thing to keep in mind here is we're using this artwork as a guide. Okay, so it does not need to necessarily be an exact replica of our artwork. But you can see we're just kind of clicking and dragging each little section. And because of the way we've kind of got this going here, we'll use the control handles here to kind of do something funky like that. So you see that there. And then we'll come down here, and I'll move this over something like that. Okay. Okay, so now we have that little line made. You can see that there. And now what we could do is we can go ahead and I'm just going to double click on that line again. I'll go back to my pen tool, and I'm just going to come way out here and do something like that. So you see that kind of looks a little bit crazy, right? But if we turn on our main tuna body, so we'll turn that back on. So there's our main tuna body. So now you can see where that blue area is going to be. Now, there is a function. So if we select this, our red, and then we select this piece here, right? So this is our main tuna body here. If we go to path, there's all kinds of different what they call Boolean operations. And so if you want to learn a lot about InkScape, it's something you really have to have a good grasp on when we're using InkScape, is how these Boolean options work. Now, even for somebody like me who's been around InkScape for a little bit, these are still incredibly confusing. So I find myself watching YouTube videos on Boolean operations in InkScape here. So we have this difference option, which we already used. Union will literally combine two objects into one. And so, you go on down the list here, but there's an option called division. And when we click on that, you don't really see a whole lot happen, except look what happened. That piece that we had, that we created, okay, it changed. It just cut right where the two overlapped. Okay, and so now you can see we have a division. Okay, so now we can give that the same color as our tail fin, and now you can slowly begin to see how we are building out our little tuna here. Now we can go ahead and come back in here to InkStitch and params, and you'll see that this new piece of blue, it does have the horizontal fill stitches. So remember, the white part had -25, so we might want to do something different for this fill. We might want to go either +25. We could do that, which would be the exact opposite, or 35. Sometimes just that little bit of difference in stitch angle can, make things look kind of cool. All right, so now we'll go ahead and turn back our tail fin, but you can see how we're building this piece by piece by piece and how this is going to come together. So that's really it. I just wanted to give you a little, wet your whistle a little bit on this one, not make it a full-length video, but that's what I would continue to do. I would continue to turn things off and on and just take it bit by bit by bit by bit. So now that we have the blue area and we have this white area, of course, so now we would call this blue. So we might want to call it main blue. Okay, differentiate a little bit. And so now we don't need that guy, and we don't need that guy. And now what are we going to focus on? Well, now we're going to focus on this gold area. So again, I grab my pen tool, and I'm just going to click, 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 click. And I'm just, I don't really even worry too much about where I'm clicking. I know I just need a few nodes to be able to differentiate some things here. So again, we don't want any fill, so we already have our stroke. Again, we'll switch over to our node tool, and then we just kind of want to represent this a little bit, right? So we could just kind of push and pull and drag and dodge, and it doesn't have to be exactly the way it was. So you can see we're coming along here, right? So it really depends on how accurate you want to be, but I'm not doing anything real special. I'm just clicking and dragging and just kind of making it up as I go along. So you can see now what I've done here. I've made this little squiggly line to kind of represent our gold. Now I am going to pull this up just a little bit because I want to make sure that this end cap is covering up the white. So we are going to trim white. So let's come our main tuna body. That is what we're going to trim. So everything on this side is going to become gold. Okay, so everything on this side of that red line is going to become our gold. All right, so again, like we did before, now we're going to take this piece, our red piece. It's on top. It does need to be on top for this cutting function to work, and you'll learn that when you watch those videos on Boolean operations in InkScape. So we're going to select our main tuna body, and then we're going to do the same thing. Now remember, before we did this kind of big block all the way around, we came way to the outside. This time we're not going to do that, and I just am curious, if we do not have a closed path, we have an open red path here, it's just a single line, will that difference command still work? Or do we need a closed object? So that's one thing, honestly, I'm not quite sure about. But I do know that we do need to use this division command. And if we're lucky, there we go. Chop, chop. Okay, now if we want to, we can come in here. Let's on our main image, let's give this full opacity. So that piece that we just created, if we want that fill to be that color right there, we could come over here to the stroke and fill options here. And you see there is, so if we come over, we are on fill, and you see that little eyedropper. we can click on that, and when we do that, you can see that we do get that exact color. So that can be useful. Okay, so now you can kind of see how we're building. We're building, right? So again, we'll come back in here to InkStitch. We'll come down to params here. And let's go ahead and for our stitch angle, I don't know, let's just do -30. I'm just going to do something different than I've already applied in all the other situations. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit apply and quit. And now let's go back over here and take a look at, go ahead and turn that other piece on. So you can see there, and we'll come up here to extensions, InkStitch. Let's go down here to that stitch plan preview again, and we'll just go ahead and hit apply. Now, one thing I haven't done yet, and it's not critical that we do it at this point. Right now, we're just building out our graphic. But one thing I have not done just yet is size the design to the actual finished embroidery file. And we don't need to do that until such time that we are going to actually get ready to embroider this. So obviously, you know, this could be, I don't know how big this is. How big is this? This is, if I go to inches here, this is, okay, so this is only 4.5 inches tall. Okay, that's pretty small, but you get the idea here. But now when you zoom in here, you can see each one of these pieces have in fact the fill has been changed. Now this right here that you're looking at, you know, it's not very representative of how this is going to stitch. So don't pay a whole lot of attention to this. But I think you can see how we're slowly building this out, building it out. So let's go ahead and take our stitch plan and let's just dump that here. And then our main tuna body, the blue part, we're going to get rid of. And then, so let's see here. So this is main tuna, that was the main blue part. Okay, and then this is, so this is main gold tuna body. So that's the gold piece. So you can see how, and one thing to point out too is InkStitch will stitch in the order of our layer stack here. So it's going to stitch the tail fin first, then the gold, then the main white tuna body. Okay, and so on and so forth. So the eyeball here, where it's kind of covering up part of the gold here, we're actually going to get rid of that. Let me just show you that piece, and then I think that will be it for this particular video. So I just want to show you this eyeball real quick. How do you do the eyeball? Well, what I would do here, and I'll show you how this works, is you just come in here and grab your ellipse tool. Okay, so there's our ellipse tool. Now what we might want to do is we might want to take our ellipse tool and duplicate it, first of all, but I want to trim out my gold. So do we remember what the Boolean was for that? So we select our cookie cutter, which is this red circle, shift click our gold. Do you remember what the Boolean was? Well, if you come up here to path, the Boolean for that is difference. Okay, so now you can see where we had our eyeball, that gold got chopped. Okay, so the more familiar you become with InkStitch and what all these different commands are, the quicker you're going to be able to create your artwork. It's just how it works. So let's go ahead and duplicate this. Now if we hold the Shift and Control key down, that will constrain it to a circle, and looky there. It will also resize it from the middle. If I let go of my Shift, then you can see what it does. Something totally different. Shift will resize it in the middle. Okay, so let's just say we want to do something like that. Now, I don't know what that distance is, but it's pretty important for me to know what that distance is. So we'll grab our measure tool, which is right down here, M for measure on our keyboard, and we're just going to click. And if you look here, I don't know if you could see this quite well. Let me put my glasses on because I can't see it quite well. You see there? That is very tiny. And so that's something that we have to kind of keep in mind when we're doing embroidery. So that's 2 millimeter, but if I go from here to here, which is more parallel, you can see we're at 1.75 millimeters. So that's important to know. So we're okay. That's going to work out just fine. Uh, so we're okay there because really we don't want anything less than 1.5 millimeters. That's kind of the key here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this center circle. I'll show you why here in a moment, but I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on the outside of that circle, and we're going to come up here to path and choose combine. Okay, so path combine, and then we have our circle here in the middle. So I want you to see this. So you see how we have two pieces there? So this ellipse, see where it says it's an ellipse? We need to go to path, object to path, and then we'll call this center eye. Okay, so there we go. There's the center eye. And then this here, I don't know what, we'll just call it outer eye. I'm not really sure if there's a quote unquote a professional name for that or not. Okay, now to create satins, we need something called rails. Okay, and we need two. Rails are like railroad tracks. So we have to decide how we want this to stitch out, this circle. So I'm going to click this from the outside and inside, and that's going to create our rail. So I'm going to break it apart. Now, if I go ahead and go up to extensions and choose InkStitch and come down to params, by default, it's going to assume that we want a running stitch. In fact, it's going to assume that we want a fill because we have that gold fill still applied, which we don't. We don't want that to be filled. We cannot do satin and fills. So we get rid of the fill, and now we come up here to InkStitch and params. And it is going to automatically assume we want running stitches because we have that path, but we don't want running stitches. So as soon as we click off of that, then it will go ahead and give us our nice satin column around the eyeball. Apply and quit. Okay. Now for the center of our eye, we need to do the exact same thing. We cannot have a fill. And let's go ahead and for our stroke color, so we'll click on, see where it says stroke style and stroke paint here. We have that eyedropper tool, and we're going to click right there, and that is going to give us, should give us the stroke style we want, and it does, but we have this other stroke right on top. That's why it's still looking red for us. But what we're going to do is we're going to, again, just double click on this, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Now, we clicked on our outer eye, so let's turn that off for a second. Again, a good reason to have these named so we can see exactly what we're working with. So we're going to select that, shift click this. I want my satin stitches to go this way, so I have to break it apart the opposite. So I want them to go this way. If I wanted my satin stitches to go up and down, then I would break it apart horizontally. I know, doesn't make sense, but that's what it is. So let's go ahead and back into params. Now this is plenty big to turn into a satin, so I'm not worried about that. You can see we get a nice satin center eye. And let's go ahead and turn on our outer eye again. And now the same thing here. We're going to go to stroke. We're going to go to stroke paint. We're going to go to that eyedropper, and we're going to come right in here, and that will change. Should have changed, but it didn't. Let's go just try that again. There we go. I guess that's a lighter color than, not really. What was I thinking? I'm not sure. So let's go back. I'm not sure what I was thinking there. Let's go back to our center eye and our stroke paint. I want that to be definitely darker. There we go. I guess we'll live with that. So again, now if we kind of just take a step back, everything is turned on as far as our embroidery file goes. Okay, we got the eye and everything else. So we're going to come up here to InkStitch. We'll do the visualize and export. We'll do our stitch plan preview one more time. Go ahead and just hit apply. Now for the text of this design, the Fishing North Coast, I would just use the lettering options that are here inside InkStitch, find a font we like, and just go ahead and use it. But if we zoom in here, you can see here how we have the nice satin stitch around that eye. We have the nice satin stitch for the fill, and you can see how we have the nice gold, the blue. I guess I didn't turn my blue layer on, my bad. But the white and our blue fin and so forth. So you can see how we could build this out pretty simply. Like for me to go through and work through all of this, what I would do here, just to kind of give you some ideas here, what I would do for this black of the mouth, I would do that as one solid fill, and then these little pieces, I would come in and I would do some satin stitches there, some satin stitches for his tongue. Again, we would just come in here, make that piece, and remember we'd use this to trim this piece back to a perfect size and add some fins and these little guys. Just exactly the way I've already showed you. It's just kind of repeat the process over and over again. Then of course we have to build our hands because that's sitting on top of everything. And then of course what I would do is I would use the boundaries of all these objects because we do have this black border. So I would use the boundaries of all these objects. We would have to manually probably create this right here and then convert all that to satin, and that's just another whole process. So point being is there is a little bit to it. All right, there is a little bit to it, and it does take some knowledge to kind of walk through all of this. The design that I linked to in this video is in the listing description. I do it from the very beginning to the very end, every single bit of it. Okay, so but at least this will kind of wet your whistle a little bit and kind of show you the process that I use to kind of break all this down. So I hope that helps and get you going, get you started, get you excited about what's possible. But yes, it does gonna take a little bit of know-how to get there. Thanks for watching.